meeting is the Committee on Finance, which will be chaired by Commissioner Bagger.
Thank you, Commissioner O'Toole. Today's meeting of the Committee on Finance is being held in public session. The committee also met in executive session earlier today to discuss matters relating to ongoing negotiations and review of contracts or proposals. At this point, I'd ask the Board Secretary to advise those present of the composition of the committee and whether we have any commissioner recusals for our meeting today.
The committee is composed of Commissioner Bagger as the committee chair, Commissioner Eve as the committee vice chair, and Commissioners Hurwitz, McCabe, and Pacino. All committee members are present at today's meeting with the exception of Commissioner Eve. There are no recusals on the first quarter financial results.
Great, thank you. As you know, each quarter, our Chief Financial Officer presents a review of the financial results of the preceding quarter to the board and to the public. Last month, we had a review of the full year 2018 financial reports, and Libby McCarthy is back today to share with us the results for the first quarter of 2019. Libby?
Thank you, and good afternoon, Commissioners. I'm going to do my typical disclaimer at the front end of the presentation. This is unaudited, condensed financial information, which is best understood when read in conjunction with the published financial statements of the Port Authority and their notes thereto for 12/31/2018. Net operating income for the first quarter of 2019 totals $490 million before consideration of non-cash depreciation and amortization. This amount is $8 million or 2% over the 2019 budgeted amounts and slightly below the year-to-date amounts for the prior year because of planned operating activities. After considering depreciation and amortization, income from operations totals $148 million for the quarter, and that's a $41 million decrease year over year. That decrease is primarily as a result of the completion of approximately $5.3 billion of capital construction projects during 2018, including elements of LaGuardia redevelopment program, the Goethals Bridge replacement program, the Bayonne Bridge navigational clearance program, and the path signal replacement program. Overall, these first quarter operating results, after subtracting non-operating expenses, produced an increase in net position of $104 million for the quarter, achieving a total net position of the Port Authority of $16 billion at March 31st, 2019. Looking at gross operating revenues, they increased $34 million or 2.7% year over year. Fixed and percentage rentals increased $17 million, driven by scheduled rent increases, robust aviation passenger activity, and increased occupancy at One World Trade Center. Aviation fees, which provide for recovery of certain capital investments and operating expenses, increased $9 million, primarily due to cost recovery related to increased capital investments and increased policing and security costs to meet ongoing security requirements. And finally, toll revenues at Port Authority's 6 vehicular crossings increased $5 million or 2.6% year over year, as a result of increased vehicular activity, partially offset by increased toll discounts as a result of higher utilization of our E-ZPass facilities. Activity across the facility, all of our facilities showed growth, with the exception of PATH, which we'll just talk about in a minute, but Port Commerce had the largest piece of that growth, with 6.7% year over year in container activity due to strong demand for imported goods. Aviation passengers activity of over 30.5 million passengers grew 2.9% year over year, with expansion in both domestic and international passenger activity. TB&T volumes, as I mentioned a minute ago, of nearly 28 million vehicles in total was an increase of 2.6% over the prior year, and that's across all vehicle types, with the bulk of that growth, however, being in the autos, as you can see on the chart. PATH passenger volume activity of 19.3 million passengers was essentially flat with the 2018 levels due to the weekend closures of tunnels E and F, on the World Trade Center line as a result of the work we are doing with respect to ongoing Superstorm Sandy maintenance and repairs. Moving to operating expenses, they grew for the quarter $44 million, or 4.3% as compared to the prior year. Security costs were the largest of that increase. They increased $12 million related to planned security investments and including increased police headcount. Maintenance payments increased $8 million to account for the operation and maintenance of the JFK and Newark AirTrain systems, in addition to the addition of the Goethals Bridge replacement bridge developer payments, which became effective after substantial completion of that bridge in June of 2018. Winter weather also contributed to the cost increase, with $7 million of an increase due to higher snow and ice removal activities across all of our facilities. And finally, there was an increase in our spend on our customer service initiatives of $4 million year over year. This all results pulled together resulted in stable financial performance across and positive cash flow and liquidity across our facilities, allowing us to make continued investment in our capital projects. Cash and investments for the quarter total $3.7 billion. This reflects $472 million of cash flow from operations, which is a $32 million year-over-year decrease, and that's attributable to a net reduction in our payables and an increase in receivables. Cash flow from and available CP that support our capital program totals $570 million. And that consists of capital funds on hand of $304 million and commercial paper availability of $266 million. When excluding our general reserve fund and capital funds from our calculations, our cash and investments on hand represent a healthy 153 days of cash on hand. And then finally, moving to the liability side of the balance sheet, bonds and other financing obligations for the quarter totaled $22.6 billion, which is nearly flat compared to our year-end 2018 results. As I mentioned, all of this is supporting our capital activities, and Derek Utter will brief more on our capital program spending for the first quarter in the next committee meeting. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions on the results.
Great. Thank you, Libby. Thank you for the report, and to you and the entire Port Authority team for another strong quarter. I'd just like to reemphasize what you just said, which is that our net revenue, operating income, net of expenses is not only running a % ahead of budget, but those revenues, which in the first quarter total $657 million, those net revenues are what is available both to support our debt service and to support our cash payments towards executing on the capital plan of investing in our infrastructure. Do we have any questions or comments from the board for our Chief Financial Officer? If not, Libby, thank you very much. And Mr. Chairman, that concludes our meeting.